Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday morning class. Coming to you from HeartLight Spiritual Center here in Charlotte, North Carolina. For you that are joining us online, we want to welcome you, and to you that are here in person, thank you so much for coming. I've met some resistance concerning the subject of Gnosticism, but sometimes you have to look at resistance. Like, what is the resistance? You know, sometimes it's the resistance to do something and be obedient to what Spirit is saying, and sometimes it's a way of not going the way of Spirit. So I've kind of moved through my resistance with this idea that we would do this for about three Wednesdays, and then we'll reevaluate where it is. My reluctance to doing this is it's going to shake all of our belief systems. Trust me, most everyone that is here, what you believe and how you've believed is probably going to be relooked at. Now, Gnosticism and most all things that we are referring to that are mostly the first 4 centuries AD, which is mostly in the Roman Empire, and the first 4 centuries represents just before the organization of what we call Christianity. But actually, there is a pre-Christianity. There's kind of 2 Christianities. There is a early Christianity, and there is an organized Christianity, which actually happened around 315 AD in the Nicene Council. So this is a lot of influence from Constantine and those who were running the empire at that time, who saw an advantage in organizing. And the reason they did that, as you'll find out, is because of their fear that there was so many different spiritual schools of thought that were going on in the first 2 or 3 centuries, that they thought it was important to centralize it and to organize it. Well, like everything else, there's pluses and minuses to everything. I can understand why they might want to do that, but the fact that they did that and then uprooted everything that had been done for the last few centuries was named heretics. So in other words, if you did not agree with the organized Christian teaching, you were considered a heretic. I'm sure that name could be something could be put on us by some people who have a very exclusive belief that theirs is the right one and everybody else is wrong. That's not my belief. So being a heretic is not a horrible thing. That's how you take it. But sometimes it can be a compliment, because all it says is you're not in the mainstream, that you think for yourself, that you're a person that has found your personal power, that you are, using a Bible term, working out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Now, the word fear doesn't mean afraid, but in reverence, an honor. So each one of you have to kind of work out how you want to co-architect your belief systems, because you're a part of how you create a belief system. The other part, of course, is what we call spirit. Spirit gives us things, but the things that Spirit give us is in spiritual language, which we humanly don't always understand, spirit language, any more than if you're not trained in German, would you understand the German language? Or if you're not trained in Swedish, you would not understand Swedish language. It would just be a bunch of words to you. But so when Spirit speaks Spirit, it's spirit language. It's not human language. It's not terrestrial language. It's not Latin. It's not Greek. It's not Aramaic. It's not English. It is none of the languages that connect us on the planet in the languages of the culture that we represent and whatever. Spirit language is a deeper experience. So we're going to delve into this. Fortunately, everything that I'm going to come from today, I have printed out for you, and you'll all get a copy of everything that is in this first lesson today. Now, I'm not massing them out now because I don't want you trying to read ahead and get lost in this, but I just want you to know you don't have to grasp everything. Now, you know me, stuff comes through that's not here. That's going to happen with me. But as far as the teachings, which has been so wonderfully put together for me, which I appreciate, because I just finished taking these classes. I took 24 classes under Gnosticism from a very well spiritual religious professor at Ohio University. So he's tremendous. But I was able to get a book of those based upon outlining the classes. So that's what I'm going to be basically given to you. Most of everything that comes before organized religion is considered a myth or mythology. Again, you got to watch these words. Myth doesn't mean untrue. Myth means that you're in uncharted territory of consciousness. You're in a part of your consciousness that you have not formed into literal brain thoughts and understanding. That makes sense to you? I mean, every one of you, what you know right now is because you have created words and thoughts and put them together and that type of thing. So let's look at a little bit of where this comes from. I want to start out first of all that one day in 1945, an Egyptian peasant named Muhammad Ali al-Saman started a revolution. 1945. Just happened to be the year I was born. I kind of look at the themes of things like, when did I decide to come in? So I decided to come in 1945 when this young Bedouin, young man who was digging in an open, large earthware cave, found an earthwave jar. And in this jar was manuscripts inside that absolutely challenged the entire religious world. The main one that we know is called Gnosticism. There are others that we will talk about if we get into the depths of this teaching, but we want to start out with Gnosticism. I've heard the term Gnostics. I'm sure you all have, Essenes, Gnostic, all that. They're just words, though. We couldn't really sit down and have an intelligent conversation on what they were unless you've been under the teachings of Gnosticism. My connection in taking this class that I took under Gnosticism was that it resonated so much with so much of my experience and where I have come from and where I am today. So I'm coming from my own passion and connection to this teaching, that very likely I could have been a part of the Gnostic tribe. I just wonder. You wonder what resonates so strongly with you that feels familiar, even though you have no mental knowledge or have not been trained, but yet you have something somewhere in the core of your being that you so resonate with that it almost feels like I knew that, but I forgot it. Well, that was my experience with this teachings of Gnosticism, is it was so familiar to me, and yet at the same time, it was more than I knew, and it was challenging me to move forward in what I don't know about it. So I have a lot of experience with some of this, and I want to tell you right now that some of this is very controversial. And again, it's going to challenge everything you have ever considered and known about the idea of God. I've said, it's nothing new here, that I have tried to tell us all to be very cautious and aware of the term God. It's a loaded term. It means many things to many people. So you never know. When somebody uses the term God, one, what do they mean? And second, what God are they talking about? And the reason we don't think of that is because we go by the Old Testament idea that I am the Lord thy God, I am one, and there's none beside me. Now we think all of that on a metaphysical level, but it wasn't. It was on a different level completely of something that wanted to separate itself. Not to be one as in the unity of all things, but one separately, who wanted all power. So when, and that's the basic belief of religion and its idea of God is, I know we say this a lot, but it is the old man in the sky idea. The old guy in the sky that we see in pictures and we hear. This is called, if you remember, there's a name for that, called anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism. Big word, but it just simply means that we have created the true God in the image of ourself. Not a God who created us in its image, but we who've created an image of God who looks like us in our image. So we wanted a God that looked like a human being. And that's why they painted him on the Sistine Chapel, the old man with the finger out and Adam and all of that. All of that has made a huge difference by the use of the arts. The way the artist had a big influence, especially back in the Roman days. It was statues and it was art that people got their spirituality from. One of the big ones would be the writings and the artwork of Dante, who did the Rings of Hell and all of that. And the church thought that was so inspired of God that they made it into the doctrine of the church and still teaching it today in at least Catholicism. I don't think others do, I don't know, but I know that they still teach in the different rings and so of hell, all of this based upon Dante's work. So these things have early set a precedence within our mind. We all have images now of things, but we don't really have an experience of the things we have images of. Does that make sense to you? You can have an image, a psychological image of something, and you can believe in that image but not have any idea what it's the image of. So, I'm going to give you this scripture, I just have to, and it's Psalms 115 in the Old Testament. Now, I don't mind quoting David at all, because David was not of the God of the Old Testament. David was the God of the Most High that fathered the Christ into the earth. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into it. So, what was I saying? Help me out. Keep me on. Yeah, thank you. Keep me on track, because I got 100 things going through my head right now. For they that made idols, or images, but they made idols that had eyes that could not see. They made an image and an idol that could not hear, had feet but could not walk, hands but could not feel. In other words, the images were nothing of themselves. It's just an image. Just like really statues, we got Jesus kind of out there as a representative of the teacher. Mary kind of got a new home. But what I'm saying, all these things I have no trouble with unless you worship them and not realize that these are just statues and images. The real power of them is in your mind. How you see them, how you believe them. What is your relationship with Mary? There's the Old Testament Christian idea of Mary and the manger and all of that. And then you have Mother Mary, which people talk about in New Age and spirituality. So you've got different levels of seeing these things very differently. But it's not the statue or the picture, it is the image that you make in your mind. Makes a difference. So it goes on and says that these images are nothing. They don't have eyes, but they can't see. They got hands they can't feel. They got feet, but they can't walk. But here's the real kicker. In the next verse is, and they that made them are like them. So whatever our image of something is, we act it out based upon our belief in that image. Let me give you an example, which I'm sure is going on in the world today, but you got two countries, two cultures fighting each other. They're at war with each other. That's a pretty easy one. There's so much of that going on. So let's say you're Ukrainian or Russian. We can use anything like that. And let's say there are Christians in Russia actually who pray, and there's churches, Orthodox churches. So they go and they pray for Russia, their country. They want God, their prayers is to make God bless them and to win the war. Then you got the Ukrainians going and praying to maybe the same God even, the same one, the old God that we know in religion, and they're over there praying, God, this is wrong, we're being treated wrong, you got to bless us, we need to win this war. So when Russia does something in which they feel they have made their target, and they have actually, in their mind, won something, they say, thank God, God answered our prayers. Then you got the other side who's praying to that same God, and they're praying that they win over their enemy. So when they push back the enemy, they go to church and say, look what God has done for us. Our prayers was answered. Now, who's the right one? That's the question. Who was the right one? And if you were a God both of them are praying to, which one would you bless? So it doesn't make any sense. So what I'm saying to you, that if you make images in your mind and believe them, and believe certain things about them, and then you become like them. Let me tell you, people out there who have a judgmental, hateful God, I'm sorry, there are a lot of people out there in the name of God that's just hateful. I'm just telling you the truth. They're just hateful about it. I ran into some recently, some place that I'm going into a clinic. I just got right into a hornet's nest of a bunch of fundamentalist Christian people. Of course, I'm doing my thing.
Aren't they white nationalists?
No, they are not that. But they are Christian people, and they believe in the fundamentals of Christianity that is basic and whatever. And then I show up and now they're all confused what they believe, but they're kind of listening to that. But what I'm saying to you, a person that is more of a judgmental, racist, based on their religion of some kind, and believe such. Let me give you an example. So I believe literally the Bible says, vengeance is mine, saith God. That's a scripture. Vengeance is mine, Old Testament. So now, my image of God is vindictive. He takes vengeance. Here's what happens on a psychological level. Once I believe that image, then I psychologically, subconsciously start acting out that belief that I have of that image. So I take on a very hateful personality. You've been around people like that. They're just kind of mean about it. They're just rough. And they think they're doing it because God has told them to do this. I hope you get what I'm saying to you, because all of this is so psychological. It's a drama that we play out. We are truly, as Shakespeare said, actors on the stage, kind of acting out this play that we ourselves are kind of writing in the background. No church or religion made you believe anything. You chose to believe it. So there's no reason to blame your religions you came out of and the churches and whatever, because yes, they gave you the dogma and the doctrine, but once it got in your head, you had to use your power to say, I believe it, and make it real. Not them. They do not make it real for you. You make it real for you. That's important, because if you don't, then you become a victim. And I hear this all the time from people. Oh, back when I was a child, and the church scared me to death, and God was going to send me to hell. Oh, and they're still suffering from that experience. And I'm thinking, why? Why is it necessary to say this is what the church did to me? This is what religion did to me. This is what the teachings did to me. No, it didn't do anything to you when it got in your head. You decided, yes, I'm going to believe this, and you started building that belief into an idol that had what? Eyes that cannot see, ears that cannot hear, feet that cannot walk, and then we became like them. So people act out their image of what they believe God is what they act out. So, anyway, so you that just came in, we're talking about in 1945, an Egyptian peasant named Muhammad Ali al-Samman started a revolution. And while he was digging, came on a large earthwave jar in which manuscripts inside opened the door to an entire new religious world. Basically, we are focusing on Gnosticism. In this class, we're going to look at certain religious texts that date mostly the first 4 centuries AD in the Roman Empire. And again, for you that just came in, I have this lesson all printed out for you that you will have at the end of the class. You will take this, if you're going to be a sincere student to this, look it over, and then we start out next Wednesday with discussion on this class. Okay? Gnosticism is one of the most fascinating, perplexing phenomena in the Western religious history. The heart of Gnosticism is gnosis. That's Gnosis. It is a Greek term. Greek was definitely a language that was not used until the New Testament, but was used as loan words in Hebrew and Aramaic. So there's always been the Greek influence as long as there have been any kind of writings or teachings. So let's look at gnosis. In a simple definition, it means direct knowledge of the true God. And I'm putting in the word true. It doesn't say that. It says of God. I'm going to distinguish between the true God and the lesser God. The true God is the God of a spiritual world that is whole and perfect. The lesser God is the world of a materialistic world that is full of suffering and pain. And this is why this is so important. If I can get this over to you, you're going to have to decide who are you feeding through your prayers, attention, meditation, contemplation. You're either feeding the Most High, true God of our spiritual self, or the God of materialism of the physical world. Religion tried to make them the same. That's where they got us. If you want to know where the seed of deception came in through organized religion, was once they coined the phrase Judeo-Christianity. Worst thing that could have happened is when they went and picked out some of the laws of the Old Testament and moved them over under the Church of Grace and put them together, that we have the mixture that weakened all that had been done in the first and second and third century by these books that was found in 1945 at the Nag Hammadi. The Nag Hammadi. That is the Egyptian city. These were found, and they're called the Hag Amati Library. I have the book. It is the books such as Mary Magdalene, Thomas, Judas. Oh my gosh, it gives you a whole different idea of who these characters were than the Bible. The Bible gives you a total false idea of who these characters are. So to really know who these people are, you have to go back before they started translating, changing, and weakening the original schools of thought of the first, second century. The closer you can get back to the teachings of Yeshua, the better, clear translation you get. The further away you get, the further you get away from the true translations. And that's why it's important. Now, I'm just laying a foundation here this morning with you. This is why there's something that's very important that I call the restitution of all things spoken by the mouth of the prophet. What that means is before this total age completely ends, which it is ending, it's not ended, it's ending. Whether you call it the Piscean to the Aquarian, or you call it the old age and the new age, I don't care what you call it, it's overlapping right now. Something is trying to end itself and die out while another's trying to birth itself and move in. So you and I got kind of caught between these two worlds, or in the gap. That's why we put that up there. The gap. Who shall stand in the gap and make up the hedge, it says. It's a question. Who? I'm telling you, you wouldn't be here if you did not have said before you came in here, when they ask you, yes, I'll incarnate at this time and be here. And when you said yes before, and you were being prepared for this incarnation, you were being prepared to have all the power you needed to sustain through this incarnation and come out victorious in the end. It's already set, folks. It's not a question. You're already spiritually contracted and programmed to make it through this time. So everything you need to be successful in this death and birth experience simultaneously is already in you. You lack nothing. You are totally equipped. But here's the key. I don't care how totally equipped you are in your higher soul. It's done. Doesn't matter. Unless you can resonate with it and bring it into consciousness. If it's left in an unconscious state, it is nothing to you. It may be everything, but at the same time, it has maybe become nothing. So, the fact that most Christian teachings, and not just Christian, we could look at Hinduism, Buddhism, we could look at Mohammedanism, all of the isms that are out there, especially the monotheistic ones more, are not, and we'll all see that they basically came from the experience of one person. And upon that one person's experience, a belief system was built. And that's what Christianity became. It became a person that says, I can't have the experience that Jesus did, but I'm going to believe in the experience Jesus had. I can't have that experience that Muhammad had, but I'm going to believe he had an experience, and all the teachings of his experience are going to be my belief system, and I'm going to believe everything that's written in the book about it. Judaism is the same thing. They look at Moses, Abraham. There are certain people that are the fathers of those basically religions who most likely, I would say, had an experience. I don't think they just dreamed up these things. I think they were the result of having an experience. But the millions of followers they have most likely has never had that experience that they had, but they believe in the experience. This is why you have to watch this idea of your belief systems. And that's what we're going to kind of challenge a little bit here today, because maybe it's time for us to step back and observe our belief systems. Are you willing to do that? Some people aren't. Some people find it very, what's the word I want? They don't want to be challenged. They're happy where they are. And I want to say that to you that are here at HeartLight. I'm doing my best to try to have at least, if not more, 3 basic levels of teaching going on here at one time. Those who are very happy with the fundamental teachings of metaphysics and New Thought. We have that. So if you're very happy what you learned in Unity, Science of Mind, and whatever, and that just kind of fulfilled everything that you thought you were looking for, we have those teachings here. We have Fillmore's teachings woven in here. We got Holmes's teaching in here, and all these different things. There's always something for everybody here, but maybe not everybody at the same time. So I call those, the people who don't really want to commit to growing, because growing spiritually means taking time to step back and seeing what needs to be corrected. And that's the ego thing. There's something about the ego that says, don't you correct me. So you have to be in a state to be taught. Not so much by me, but what I'm going to tell you. Once it enters into your consciousness through the teaching, you're going to have to say, okay, this is what I thought it was, and I think I like it. I think I'm happy there. Stay with it. But if you hear something and go, ooh, I never heard it that way, I'm going to look at that and contemplate it and not judge it right or wrong, good or bad, but I'm going to contemplate it and see, does it resonate with my belief system that I have at this time? If it doesn't, then I am willing for correction to happen. That's the whole thing of A Course in Miracles. It's a whole book of correction. It says it right in the beginning. It is a spiritual, psychological book of correcting Christianity by using the language of Christianity. The very language, and I think that's just genius, is don't go off into a different language, but use the language that gave it to you in the first place, but it gave you in the wrong order in which you believe it differently than the truth that is behind it. I don't know about you, but I want the truth of what I believe. If I don't, then I'm going to defend my belief system with you. I'm going to argue with you. I'm going to debate with you. I'm going to run away from you because you don't believe the way I do. This is the kind of thing that we have to stop. And my goodness, you've so learned, excuse me, from me, the importance of your belief system sets the frequency that becomes your what? Etheric blueprint that drives cellular replication. See, I can't wait till you can just say that off, rattle that off. So I'm going to say it again, in fact. Your belief system, what you choose to believe, is with your power. It's your power to believe something. So this is how you're investing your power, is in a particular belief, okay? So once that is qualified by you, then it is established. It's established. Once it's established, it takes its place in making the blueprint in your etheric body. And once that becomes a part of the etheric body, as cells destroy themselves and replicate themselves, which is very Hindu. They understood this 5,000 years ago, if not more, that they understood something that we didn't understand until we looked into an electron microscope. That's what it took for the West world, was technology. It's always taken technology. And even though in some ways it's blessed us, it may betray us in the end. So it's good that they had the electron microscope, because they found a world that was more subtle than atoms. They went into a world of electrons and protons and neutrons. Then they went into a world of quarks and neutrinos, and things just got smaller and smaller and smaller. And all of a sudden, nothing was a solid, and everything was just a bunch of waves coming together and interface patterns, which is what you all are. And I've tried to show you that Sunday, that if I could really see you as you are, not that I see you in my optical illusion. Every one of you right now is an optical illusion, seeing you as a solid body sitting there, because you're not. You're not a solid body sitting there. You're just a bunch of sine waves and all kinds of waves coming together and crossing each other, and that gives a pattern that feeds my brain, and that pattern ends up on my optical nerve, and I see you in my brain as solid and whole, but you're not. And that's called illusion. And because I see you as solid, you're going to feel solid if I came and touched you. If I hugged you, you'd feel like a solid body. See? Because my belief in that is so strong that I make it become that by the way I observe it and perceive it. Okay, so they understood that millions of atoms right now, while you're sitting in this class, is being destroyed and remaking themselves, destroy and remaking themselves. They call it the dance of Shakti and Shiva. The destroyer, the creator. One destroys, one creates. One destroys. Here's the dance. Da, 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 da. There's a whole rhythm. There's a whole rhythm to this whole thing. So your belief system becomes etherically, energetically, the pattern that the new cell reads. And remember, I think it was last week or so that I explained to you that if it's true that I get a new liver every 6 weeks, you can look me up. I got it from Deepak Chopra, which I think would be very careful what he said. But I've looked it up on other things too. But I have cancer of the liver. Why, after 6 weeks, would I have cancer? And the cancer keeps digressing and getting worse and worse, because the thing that the cells are reading is a blueprint that caused the cancer in the first place. The body does not start cancer. The body is responding to a misalignment and a way in which cells have gone amok among themselves, and then we call it cancer. It is really no such thing as cancer. There is a certain way in which cells operate dysfunctionally, and they become more cannibalistic, and they start eating each other and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and then we get a disease. But it actually, and it's true, started as a disease. You know, I know we use that a lot, but it started in the etheric body. And that has been the power of what was given to me in Soma Energetics, was to deal with the etheric blueprint and not the physical body. Everybody's trying to fix the physical body. You can't fix a body that is an illusion, because you can't fix illusions. You can dispel illusions, but you can't fix an illusion. So I'm thinking, my God, for 61 or 2 years, how much energy I have spent trying to fix this illusionary world. Because I thought I could do it. I did. I thought I was the one. I had the power to get up through my preaching and through all the things that I've done for all these years. I thought each and every one of those things would be the things that would fix it. Now I'm sitting before you at 77 years old, 61, 62 years of ministry, and I'm weary and I'm tired. Not in a bad way. Well, sometimes not in the best way. But I mean, I'm tired of trying to fix it. I'm tired of finding the new and greatest new thing that's going to make everything better in the world while I'm watching the world go to hell in a handbasket. I've never seen so much suffering. I've never seen so much pain. I've never seen so much death. I could sit here and make a list to you, and nobody, if religion was right, they would have fixed it a long time ago.
That's right. That's right.
Nobody yet has fixed this world, and you're going to find out why if you stay with these teachings. Yeah. So, back to gnosis, a Greek word, but it's a different kind of, it's the word for knowledge, is what the bottom line is. During the last 75 years, previously lost Gnostic writings have reappeared from the codices near Nag Hammadi in Egypt in 1945. Such as the last one was found was in 2006, called the Gospel of Judas. Now, what fascinates me is I'm talking dates that are our time. Now get with me here, I want you to get this. Anybody here born after 1945? Oh, we got some young folks here, okay. A lot of us was born around this time, but the point is, you're living at this time in which we are referring to these teachings. We're talking 1800 years ago teachings that were lost in the 4th century. Okay? Now, someone had the wisdom and the knowledge to take those teachings, because they predicted and saw what was getting ready to happen, that Christianity was getting ready to organize and start calling everybody else heretics and make them the enemy. So they took these manuscripts and hid them in the caves near Nag Hammadi, Egypt. And this young boy finds these. The sad part of that story is he took them home and his mother used some of them to start the stove. And burnt them. But still, so many of those have been found. In fact, first time I saw them was here in Charlotte 20 years ago when I was preaching at Unity of Charlotte. We all went downtown and they were showing the lost books of the Bible at some museum downtown.
Was it the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Dead Sea Scrolls, but that's different. Dead Sea Scrolls are different than the Nag Hammadi. They're not the same thing. And we'll talk about that at some point. So as I was saying, one of the promises that we have before there's a final official ending of this age, and what that means is before the new one stabilizes as a norm, because the new one coming in is not the norm. We're still in the old norm. And here's the thing, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the new and put it into old wine sacks. Says you can't do that. You can't pour new wine into old wine sacks because they burst. So what's been missing is the creating of the wine sack to contain. Are you with me? Until there is a collective wine sack of people that are at a level of consciousness to receive the new norm, it's never going to happen, even though it is very much astrologically and every which way telling us that it is here and upon us. That's why these classes and teachings are so important to you, because what we're doing here is tuning you. We're tuning your consciousness and preparing you to be a part of the 144,000 to receive the song that no man could learn. That's what it says. There shall be 144,000 that shall receive a song that no man can learn. And I've told you, 144,000 to me is not necessarily 144,000 people. If it is, so be it. But I don't think so. I think, again, numbers always translate into frequencies and vibration. So you have 1 plus 4 is 5 plus 4 is 9. So this is a group of a people within a people, as the book of Enoch says. So I make a people within a people, a light within a light. There is a group to reach critical mass that are programmed to do it. So, as I've told you, I ask, what did the 9 mean? And of course, in numerology, 9 means what? Completion. Completion. Because when you go to 10, you have a 1 again. 1 plus 0 is a 1. So you can only go to 9. So it said to me, it is a group of people incarnated in this generation who have finished and completed all their incarnations in the old 3D world of Pisces. That's why your answer is not, how do I say this? You don't want to get spiritually apathetic, because you don't maybe have any more lifetimes to come back and work it out. This may be the one. How many of you have felt the intensity of it? You felt the intensity of this lifetime? It's not been easy. You know, they promised me easy when I got into all this stuff. Every new message I got into, when I got into Manifested Sons of God, when I got into Universal Reconciliation, when I got into New Thought and Metaphysics, and I got into this and another, I thought every one of them was going to be the one that's going to give me peace, and instead, I found the warrings of my members, as Paul said it. I found the warrings of my members. Why? Because all of the unsettled debt of my karmic story that is recorded in my Akashic records of my soul has been released as my pathology upon my body politic. And it's not been, I can tell you, fun. I'm not going to complain, I'm going to explain, but I can't tell you the path has been exactly fun. Now, when something new came along, I had a little honeymoon period with it. Like, oh, this, you know, it's like something new you think is going to really happen for you, but then it doesn't. And you go to the next thing. And the thing about it, in this 3D way in which we have set our brains up, is very linear. Remember? 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, here, there, here, now, later. You know, that's the way we think. So we keep thinking, okay, if I don't get it this time, then, you know, I'll get it next time. So your answer is not over, but it is what? Up. When you see these things, look where? Look up, the teacher said. Because I don't know what we're going to do. There's earthquakes all over the places. There's nations rising against nations. Oh my God, the world is in chaos and crises and whatever. What do we do? They said, how does this world going to end? And Jesus said, look up. Because your answer is raising your consciousness, upping your mind, upping the frequency of your consciousness to match that what you think has not been done has already been done. And you become at one mint with it, or atonement. Wait till you reach that tone of the primordial Om in your consciousness. Yeah, I'm not talking about the one that comes from a tuning fork or the one of a bowl. I'm talking the one that you hear inside yourself when everything changes your whole frequency and retunes you. So, I'm trying to get to this thing of our promise that everything will be restored that is spoken by the mouth of the prophet. So we have been taught that every monotheistic major religion has a more mystical side to it in the beginning, before it was organized to be what it is today. For Christianity, it is Gnosticism, the Essenes. Now, these are not things you're going to hear when you go into a Christian church. They're not going to be probably using the words like this, because it's pre-organized Christian. It is early Christian. And I'm going to go ahead and use the word Christian because true Christianity is only following the teachings of the Christ. That's all it was meant to be before it was changed in Antioch in the book of Acts when the unbelievers started calling them Christians. That's where it was coined at that time. But before then, they were a different kind of, they were Gnostic Christian, they were Essene Christian, they were different ones that we will talk about. There's a whole group of stuff going on. I mean, there's an outpouring of revelation and knowledge that was going on among these people. So, but all that got edited out. They started at Nicene 315 AD. This is where they decided the doctrine, such as the doctrine of the Trinity. There was no teaching of a Trinity until the Catholic Church made it a doctrine of the Trinity, another way of separating the true God up into three different ways of looking at it. 24 books were voted out that could have been in the Bible. At least the Catholic Bible did keep the Maccabees and a few things that the Christians didn't even keep that. But 24 books were gone. Revelation was added at the very last because they didn't know what to do with it. I mean, it was a kind of a mess. I have a great book called God's Secretaries, and it's the whole history of the making of the Bible. And it was, the King James Bible was summoned 50 different men, and I mean men, not women, men to come together and take a piece of that and to translate it into what the Bible is today. And they did not do it out of inspiration. They did it to inject their agendas into the teaching. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the poison, that's the whisper, that's the serpent in the Bible that puts its agenda within that. One of the greatest agendas, by the way, is to keep the feminine subjected. That's one of the early things. We cannot let this thing of the female take power because she can do what we can't. She knows how to take something, form it, and create it, and birth it. We don't know how to do that. So there's many things. I'm reading a book right now called They Lied to Us. And it all has to do with the history of homosexuality and how that there was saints and priests that were together in the early years. But you see, when organized religion came together, they said, the only way we're going to grow is to produce more bodies. So we want our families to have a bunch of kids, and then we'll raise them up as Catholics or whatever, and we'll grow by producing bodies. So let's rule out masturbation, homosexuality, and anything that did not produce. There's even a scripture that says that it is better for your sperm to be in the belly of a harlot than to be spilled on the ground. I'm just telling you like it is. I have nothing to lose here. But I don't say that jokingly, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of young teenagers who have been told they're going to go blind? That's terrible to tell a kid who's discovering their physical body that they're going to go blind, or that God's going to send them to hell and whatever. And people have committed suicides over these things. The job that's been done upon them in that way. And we need to talk about sexuality with this, because you're going to find out it did not come from the true God that you serve. That's a whole different story. So get ready. Wow, my time. I don't get started. In this course, we'll discover the diversity of early Christianity, beginning with the so-called Gnostic school of thought, which flourished in Rome in the 2nd and 3rd century. Here's another one we'll look at. The works of the secret book according to John and the Gospel of Judas. The Gnostics combined the book of Genesis with Jewish and Plato's teachings and Christian tradition to create a strange but beautiful myth that explained how the universe came through an ignorant, male, violent, lower God. The Gnosis offers salvation from ignorance and fate through the knowledge of a higher God who sent Jesus, and they claim that people could have mystical contact with the God now. Now, this is not new to you who've been listening to me for 5 years. Who's your daddy? You remember that? Who's your daddy? We're going to talk about that. We're going to show you. Jesus was very clear that the God of the Old Testament was not his father. I don't know how people can be so blind when he said the God of the Old Testament is the devil. Now, maybe the word devil's a little harsh, but maybe not. Maybe the devil just means here the adversary to what the true God created. Remember I had you all do the circle thing? Imagine that perfect circle in your mind. Then I had you draw it and how it lost being perfect in your mind but less perfect on paper. Well, this is the world you live in. You live in a less perfect world. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired of making spiritual excuses for it. Please, some of you are going to have a time getting your head out of spiritual sand that everything in the world is beautiful. No, you're confusing that with nature. Nature is not the world. You that love the birds, you that love animals, you that love the beautiful flowers and all of that, that's not the world. That is nature. That's earth nature. That's Mother Earth nature. The world are the teachings, the perceptions, the beliefs. That's the world that we've projected out here. And I don't know that I think it's all right to get so sick all the time and to have a horrible death. And I've just about had it. I've about had it with it. Excuse me, but I'm going to rise up and take my power and say, I think I'm going to co-create a different outcome. And I want you to join me. I want you to join me. But this is just the way it is. This is just the way I've seen everybody go. Everybody has to go. Everybody has to die. Everybody. You got to pay taxes and die. Do you? I don't know. Maybe. Choose this day whom you're going to serve. So what I'm saying is we have a promise that everything that's been edited out and did not become a part of the organized religions, whether it's Judaism, whether it is Muslim teaching or Christian teaching, is now ready to be restored back to us. That's why they found it in 1945. to fulfill a prophecy that everything that has been spoken through the mouth of the true prophets will be restored back to us. That's why it's important to study these things, because a lot of your mind's going to go, oh, we just need to keep going forward. Not if you're dragging your past with you. History does repeat itself. And somebody's got to step out. And my time's up. I can't believe it. My time is up. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. I'm going to change my belief system so time is no more. So I didn't get much into this, so...
We'll study it.
All right. Who wants to pass these out? Now, I'm sorry that before I knew I was doing this, I'd already started writing in it, so you're going to find some, on a few pages, you're going to see my scribblings. But please read it. We'll have much more to discuss if you read this first lesson. Now, let me make clear again, we are not teaching it. I don't know what of this I want to believe. Everybody understand? I'm not saying that everything we're teaching. Can I have your attention? Can I have your attention? I'm not saying that everything we're teaching here is the gospel truth. I'm saying we're looking at a lot of early mythology that went on that may resonate more with the true story of creation than the story of this materialized physical world. That's two different stories. And I've showed you that in Genesis 1, created in its likeness and image, male and female created he them. And then you got a second start of creation in the second out of the dust of the earth, and the female and the male is separated into Adam and Eve, and that whole story goes on right through until Yeshua, Jesus comes and embodies the true spirit of the true God and makes him the Father rather than the Old Testament God. So it's not that this can't be proved even on a literal basis, but I think if you'll stay with this, that you will see when Jesus said to them, and I leave you with this, go tell them. He was talking to Old Testament law people. Go tell them, they do not know what they worship. But my Father seeks you to worship him in spirit and in the truth. Who's your daddy? The Father of the Old Testament. Law, do you realize how much law has brought such pain? Those 613 laws of abominations. You can't do this, you can't do that. Talk about getting in your bedroom. They got in your closet too. Can't wear this, you can't have a mixture of linen and wool, or you can't have this and that. They got into your kitchen too. Can't eat shrimp, can't do this, can't do that, whatever. I mean, they got into every aspect of your life through these laws that has set so much boundaries in us that we have lost our freedom. Our freedom. What do y'all think? Are you interested to go?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
let's go further. Let's go further with this. Yes.
1945 numerologically adds up to 01, which is our new beginnings.
Yes. Yes. Good. Good catch. Good. Anybody else? I'm going to go through with you God's violence in the Old Testament, the problem. When I read you some of this thing this God has done, I think you'll shift to another loving, kind
Well
God.
done.
All right, let's just take a few seconds. Just a few seconds.
Ask one question before you.
Yes, go ahead.
But should I not believe that the Old Testament could have been written by man to control and make us fearful?
That what?
That man rewrote it to keep us in fear?
Of course.
So,
Of course. That's the point.
part of me could believe there are some things that were really magnified, changed, or?
Not all the Old Testament is going to be bad. We'll find that out. You'll find out that Isaiah was found among these as a second Isaiah, which is pretty accurate even in the Bible. They didn't mess with that one. Also, when you get into Proverbs, Psalms, Ecclesiastes, and Job, these were never taken to be literal at all. They were totally more poetry and more coming from the spirit realm. So no, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But yes, man has rewritten the dogmas of it, the doctrine to fit their agendas of what they wanted to do, to use fear to control people. And you say, well, and a lot of you here wasn't, I understand, didn't grow up in a real literalist, fundamentalist type Christian world. But I hate to tell you, well, I don't hate to tell you, but I'm going to tell you that you're still affected by it every day. Especially through politics right now, there is the ugly head of religion that is showing up, especially on the right side of fundamental Christianity. It's driving a lot of the voting and what's going on today. And it wasn't supposed to. The forefathers said, do not, separate church and state. Well, that's gone. Preachers are in the pulpit today being politicians and trying to drive their congregations toward political ways that fit Old Testament law. Really is. Not even in the New Testament. It's totally Old Testament laws. All right. Thank you so much for your patience and kindness to step out and take an adventure. And that's what we do here. We're here to do it. And again, I say to you, these are not meant for you to just say, oh, this is what I'm going to believe. Stay with what resonates with you. So you've got the papers. I think you'll enjoy reading it, I hope. Then we'll have a good discussion first thing on next Wednesday. All right, we taking our offering up? Has that been done? Oh, good. All right, thank you so much, so much, so much. Have a great day and the rest of the week. And hope to see you back on Sunday. Thanks.